Long-term viewers of this channel will know that I love a shoot 'em up, but I'm pretty rubbish at them, but I enjoy them all the same. And one of the reasons why I'm terrible at them is because I actively try and avoid every situation that can get me into danger as possible. But then I bought a game on PlayStation 5 called Graze Counter GM, and the whole point of this game is to live and play dangerously, because the only way how you can get a high score and to charge up some of your weapons is to graze against the enemies and their bullets. Oh dear Simon, you're going to have to get ballsy, and thankfully I did, and had an absolute blast playing this game. What fun it is, and it's one of the best arcade shoot-em-ups that I've played in a while, actually, I have to say. The first thing I want to talk about is how the game is built around this graze mechanic, because it's ingenious. The first thing is that you have a standard level of bullets, and they're good for killing off some of the cannon fodder enemies that are out there, but if you want to go beyond that and start hurting bosses and some enemies that can only be hurt by bigger and more powerful bullets from yourself, you'll need to start grazing things. This will build up your counter gauge, which is at the bottom of the screen, and then once that hits a certain percentage or goes all the way up to max, which is even better, you can then unleash your next level up, called your Graze Counter. Now this is like a extra charged bullet that whenever you hit any of the enemies with that, they then release these different types of stars for you to collect. This then builds up something called a break gauge, which then unleashes your maximum attack. But because these gauges power up so quickly, especially if you've got like enemies that are firing laser beams at you, you just move yourself next to it and are like la 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 for 2 to 3 seconds max, you'll be powered back up again, which then means that you can unleash your graze counter, which then means you're building up your break mode, and you're constantly kind of rotating and recycling through the 3 different types of shootings that you can do. And it's crucial because if you want to wear out some of the bosses, some of the special enemies that are out there, they'll only be hurt by either a graze counter or a break mode attack. So you really have to constantly put yourself in harm's way. And particularly when it gets to boss battles and there's so much bullet hell going on the screen, you can't help but build up those counters. So it's really, really helpful. But in the general moment-to-moment gameplay of these 7 stages that you're working your way through, you're incentivized to do so, not just from a high score perspective, but just in order to survive. This then plays into the way how stages are built, because quite a lot of environmental things that you might need to clear at speed can only be cleared by shooting them and clearing them with some of the bigger and more powerful weapons too. So you're never too far away from putting yourself in harm's danger and just having to be like really, really careful. Outside of that, you then have the different ships, which all have different attack patterns, and you'll start off with 2, and as you start completing the game on different difficulties, and there's 4 of those, you'll then start unlocking other variations of characters and ships to build up to 16 in total, which is an absolutely superb collection. And they do start to handle quite differently too, because some of them will only charge their weapons by grazing and they don't actually have a basic attack. And then you've also got different difficulties, which will then turn you into like a real dodge bullet. So it's just as much a dodging bullet hell as it is being able to attack back. There's also a passive mode, which is just literally dodging everything and hoping for the best, and I was terrible at that. Outside of the actual main story of the game, there's boss rush, but there's also a mission mode too, which gives you 30 missions to try and clear, scoring a certain amount of points or satisfying certain conditions and surviving for a certain period of time. Add on to that the fact that this game runs absolutely flawlessly and there is so much going on screen, and there's a pretty fantastic soundtrack going on in the background that will get your blood pumping. Genuinely, Graze Counter GM is one of the finest and most fun action shoot-em-ups that I've had the pleasure of playing in the last couple of years, and I would recommend it to anyone who has a vague inkling of diving into the genre. I think the way how the difficulty levels are all set up, it would introduce you to the genre quite nicely, but in a fun and engaging way. And then extreme, good luck. not for the faint-hearted, but it has that full progression for you. And I think a lot of arcade shoot-em-ups could really learn from Graze Counter GM in how to get people settled into the game, constantly drip feed unlockable features for you to then go off and learn more about the game and how to do things better, and then come back at the next difficulty up and hope for the best and put your best foot forward as you shoot and dodge your way to success. Fabulous game, can't recommend it enough. Graze Counter GM out on console, this is the PS5 version you're watching, but it's also on PC too as part of the wider Graze Counter collection. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.